Hey everybody, it's Ohio_Bass, and today we're going to talk about my two favorite soft plastic baits, the ones I use the most, the fluke and the worm. So there are a million different ways you can fish these, so to save on time, I'm going to narrow it down to what I use and the approach I use. So hopefully you'll learn something. And again, I'll start out with the basics and then move into more advanced techniques that I've picked up. And I apologize, there's so much stuff to cover. If I get off topic, I just want to make sure I squeeze everything in, so just bear with me here. We'll start out with the worm. It's your typical worm, 7 inches. And I always fish these Texas rigged. So, for anyone who doesn't know what that is, get this in camera. You want to look at this shank right here. And the length of that shank is how far you put the tip of the hook in. And then you just push that through, like so. Move this all the way up here, kind of give it a quick turn. And what you want, make sure you can see that, is when you're fishing this, you want it to be weedless. That's one of the advantages of fishing the worm. So look where this is going to go into the worm, and kind of put your thumb there. Bend the worm, try not to twist it, but then stick the hook in right where your thumb is and move it out. And now you have virtually a weedless worm. So I'll show you a technique that I do with both the worm and the fluke. And I promise you, you will not lose any bites. So when this thing's going through the water, obviously it looks like it is weedless, but sometimes you're going to hit things in the water and you might pick up leaves or you might pick up moss when it's going through the water. It'll bump up next to things, and this will come down. So to save you time and the hassle of just pulling stuff off, what I do is, and this will help, this will actually make it really weedless. Make sure you can see this. Pull this forward just a bit, and then backtrack. See that? See how now the hook is inside of this bait? And if it's going to run into anything, especially tree limbs, because I get caught up on tree limbs the most, and this will deflect anything that's coming at it. And you can do the same thing with the fluke, and I'll show you how to rig those in a second. But now you really have a weedless bait. So there's different things to look at. So I always fish both of these baits without weight. And it's kind of unorthodox, and it's not a real popular approach, but I'll tell you why. So I fish this around structure, obviously, and I like the slow sink. For me, when I fish both of these baits, I am looking for a hunger strike. I am not looking for a reaction strike, so I fish them slow. Now, typically with worms, it has a built-in scent. With the flukes, you might have to add scent, and we'll cover that in a second. But I throw these around a lot of trees, a lot of laydowns, a lot of weeds, and let it just flutter down to the bottom. When it's sitting at the bottom, what you want to do is, the most important thing is to watch your line. Now this may get a little tricky when it's windy, but after you cast it out, reel on the slack until you have this nice little dip here, almost like a rainbow going into the water. So if you can see your line, that's what you want to focus on, is the dip in the rainbow, or the little bead where you see it into the water, if that makes any sense. So you want to reel it up a little bit, reel in all the extra slack, and just have a little bit there. Sometimes I don't even use the reel. I just go like this. Then I grab the line with my finger. And you can feel the bites with the finger. A lot of times, bluegill, they're not big enough to take the whole bait, but they might move it. They might use their little mouths and suck up this part, or they really like to nip the tails off. They'll move it a little bit, and you can feel those thumps. It's like you can feel that. And it's not a bad sign when the bluegill come, because if the bluegill come, then the bigger fish are going to come. So a lot of times, I'll just use my other hand like this. Almost like a stealth mode. Watch it. Watch it. Wait about maybe 5 seconds, maybe 10 seconds. Reel in the slack, go like this, reel down. Again, make sure everything is in the right position, you have the right amount of line. Sometimes you can reel in the slack, and I still keep my finger here when I do this. I do a couple twitches and I bring it up, just so the bait in the water will be sitting there. It'll kind of do one of these, sink back down. Then you wait. And watch the line. When you get a bite, the line will go out quickly, so you set the hook. Now when it's windy, it's a little more difficult because the wind can play tricks on your eyes and you see the line going out. Sometimes it's not lightning fast, but you have to pay attention. So a good rule of thumb is, if you think it's a bite, if you feel something, just set the hook. You have nothing to lose. If there's nothing on there, you can just reel it in and recast. Here's something that not many people think about. I do. You have these two hooks here, which appear to be the same size. See these? But since I fish these weightless, I do like a little bit of weight, and there's a couple different ways you can do that. One, if I turn these hooks sideways, now this may not be, let me see this, really obvious to you, but this weight, or this hook is thicker than this one. So when I want extra weight, a little casting distance or a little faster sink, I will go with the thicker hook. And you can see that when you're in the store, you can look at the packages and see which ones are thick. It's good to have some thick ones, and it's good to have some thin ones. So I use the thick ones when I'm fishing weeds. Now, the good thing with the thin ones, if you use the 30-pound Power Pro braid and any kind of reliable knot, if you get stuck, say you do rig it weedless like this, you do get stuck on a limb and you are stuck and you don't want to break it off. Three things could happen. Your line will snap, your knot will slip, or if you're fishing one of these and you have the power, what will happen is this hook, when it's stuck in the branch, will actually start to bend. And it will bend, and then you'll get it off. And you can continue using the hook if you just take a pair of pliers, and you will see that it's bent up. You take the pliers and you bend it down, and it will just save you time, it'll save you money. If you're fishing around trees, and obviously it's strong enough for the bass to reel that in comfortably, but when I'm fishing around trees, I use the thin one because it's easier to bend the hook. So keep that in mind. Now when I use the fluke can either be a reaction strike or it could be a hunger strike again, but I use them weedless, or I use them weightless. And I'll show you again. What you do is you look at the length of this and you put that in. And these are a little slippery. And you can see that. Move this all the way up to the shank there. Do a little twist. And then you can see about right here is where I want to insert the hook. Keep my thumb there, bend the bait, go up. Now you have the bait, do the little tuck. Okay, so now you're ready to go. I kind of misjudged that because I'm looking at the camera and not the bait, so try this again. There we go, that looks a little better. And then again, do that. So now it's stuck there. So with flukes, they might come with scent, they might not, but I have the luxury of using this, and I use this on all my soft plastic baits, whether or not they come with a scent. If you have your own personal scent, this will work too. But what I really like with the flukes is, inside they have a split belly here, and that's a perfect place to apply that scent. And with this, it's like a paste, and that will sit inside of there. And I grabbed these out of my bag. You can see I have a bunch of colors. I would recommend picking up all of them. It kind of adds a little UV kind of finish to it. And again, yeah, let's see if you can see that. I just put it right inside of there. Now, if you want to use the plastic worm and add your scent, I apply it to the same place. I kind of put it right underneath here, and that way it's kind of guarded. So if it does hit anything, it's not like just smearing off the scent. So with the Flukes, yes, the Flukes. Okay, so I like these Flukes again because they're weighted very, I say, properly. They go down into the water, and then with a couple of twitches, this thing will dart, and then it will slowly sink back down. So when it's going through the water, it'll look something like this, almost like a jerk bait. That's basically what it is. Let it sink back down. These I move a little quicker, even though I am still trying to draw the hunger strike. I'll show you. Reel it up, cast it out, reel in the slack, get this on frame. I do a boom, 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 reel in a little bit, let it set, boom, 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 reel in the slack, boom, 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 just like this. It's subtle. You don't have to make a hole, like you're not dragging the whole thing like some people do on TV with the jerk baits. You just want a little twitch, and then depending on what size rod you have, you can feel the tip kind of flex a little bit, and that will give it the perfect darting action. And my favorite all-time bait is the jerk bait, but this comes in handy because in my area we have a lot of weeds, so anything with treble hooks is going to get snagged up. So I throw these all the time, and you look for those little pockets. It can kind of flutter on the water a little bit, creating like the simulation of a scattering bait fish, and then you let it sink down, and it'll go and it'll flutter down into the little pockets. You do the jerks, it'll go through the water like this. It'll kick up dust, it'll kick up particles, it'll draw attention, and you have the scent. You let it slowly sink back down. It mimics a dying bait fish. It's perfect. So those are the two basic techniques I use, and there's other companies and other brands, and they all have different features. So the next thing I want to talk about is weight. So if you do want to add weight, there are a couple different ways you can go. With the plastic worm, you can add beads if you just want a little extra weight. And the beads also provide something else. It makes a click noise. So when it's going through the water, these beads will make a click like that, which will send impulses to the fish, so it's easier to find. Especially in darker water, this is a good approach. Different color beads, different sizes. You can play around with it. So I do use beads sometimes, especially if I'm using a worm and I want it to sink a little farther, or if I'm in deeper water and I want it to sink faster down to the bottom. You see a lot of guys, and this is the most popular way to use a bullet weight. And again, I'm not opposed to using the weight, but typically I'm fishing between 5 and maybe 10 feet of water. So I don't need the bait to go down that quick. I like how it slowly sinks down. It's basically a really easy meal. But there are people that will rig this up the same way, just like this. Have the weight, bounce it off the bottom. They bounce it quick. And with this bait, or this weight, obviously it's not tied on, and it will just basically just go like this above the water, or underneath the water, and you can just keep chugging it along, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. If you're fishing parallel on a boat, you know, you can just keep doing that up and down. I won't cover the drop shot because that's a whole different other thing. So there's that. Another way you can add weight, and I found this on Twitter, and I don't have a split shot, but I saw a guy, this is really interesting. He took a split shot, and with a pair of pliers, he just snapped it right here at the bottom. So if you don't want to retie, you're in a hurry, or if you just want to see if it'll be effective, yeah, just take a little split shot, clamp it on right at the bottom of that bait, cover it with scent, and that will give you a different fall speed. And sometimes that's the trigger right there. I have a bunch of colors. Sometimes that's the trigger. There's weights like this. I barely use them. They are popular. They're easy. You just hook them up the same way. You know, you kind of just squeeze it through there. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to destroy this bait. Here's another approach. That's basically what I just said to do with the split shot, but this is on there. And with the screw, you take this and you screw this into the head. I actually use these more on Flukes. Make sure you can see that. So you just basically screw this into that. There, put your thumb right there. Kind of doing this upside down, but get the idea. And there you go. Now you have your weight down there at the bottom. So when this goes down there and sink, you can bounce it up and down, up and down. With the Flukes, you can obviously use the bullet weight again. That's very popular, very easy. Nail baits. Nail baits are something that you may not know about. So these are baits that you could just insert right into the nose. So I like to push these guys, depending on what size you're using. There's different size nail baits. You push that in with your thumb. Just like that. And that will give you a faster dive. And it will dive like this. Now there are people that put nail weights in the belly, and that will give you a more parallel fall as opposed to a head fall. Different sizes. If you need more weight, you want to cast it farther, you want a faster sink, you want to work it through the water faster because you need more weight. If you don't have weight and you try to work it fast, it's going to work itself up to the top of the water really quickly. So if you do want to work this bait fast, maybe in the middle of summer, yeah, I would recommend a bigger nail weight. It's virtually invisible. If you put it in correctly, it'll add some more weight. You can even add 2 of them, or you can just add one in the back, depending on how you want it to sink. Now these baits do not have a rattle. Worms do not have a rattle. It doesn't mean you can't add your own rattle. So these are available everywhere. Again, you can stick these right into the cavity if you're creative. And stick that right in there, and then when the bait goes through the water, it will have the scent, it will have the visual representation of the fish, and it will also have a sound. Oh, I do have a split shot here, so look at me being all prepared. So if you put this and you clamp it on, I do not have my pliers with me, but that's similar. If you clamp that on there, that's similar to what you see here. Now, I'll let you in on my favorite secret. Oh, glow sticks. I forgot about that. So, in really murky water, or if you have a UV scent, what you can do is there's a company called Glow Pro Lures. You can buy these glow sticks. They're available a lot of places, but those are my favorite ones. Excuse me. You can also insert these into the belly. And you can't see it, but if you insert this into the belly, and maybe it's a good idea to take another hook and make your own cavity. I'm not going to do that now, or a nail weight, anything really. You can make your own cavity. Just get it started. Insert that into the body, and then stick it up through. And now you will have a bait, let me see if you can see that illuminates. Depending on what color, what brand, and how you want to approach it. But that is also a very cool technique that a lot of people do not use. I'll make a whole video of how I use glow sticks. for catfish fishing and for bass. So another thing I like to do, and I catch a lot of grief for this, I am a big fan of the swivel. If you don't know what a swivel is, it's basically a little clamp, and it allows you, for people like me who have one rod in the trunk, I don't have a bunch of different rods on my deck where I can just switch out baits really quickly. Every time I want to change a bait, I would have to cut my line, retie, and in general, I switch baits maybe every 5 minutes, and maybe just the color of the bait, or I will switch from a fluke to a worm to a spinnerbait, back to a different color fluke, a different size worm, all within maybe 10 minutes. So I use a swivel. It also kind of reduces line twist, and if you use a spinning reel or you have new line, the wind knots, they're it's the most frustrating thing in fishing, is when you just spool a new line on your reel and then you get 3 or 4 wind knots. So using a swivel, it also provides a little extra weight. And you would think this little guy wouldn't make a difference, but it does. It does. And it allows you to change your baits quickly. So I'll give you another pro tip for what I do. So you can see I have a lot of different colors. I have more. So instead of changing my bait, perhaps I want to go with a lighter color here. So instead of unrigging this entire thing, throwing this back into the bag, kind of destroying it a little bit, because every time you take a bait off, it slowly wears it down. And I can't find it. So to save the life of the bait, when you go out and buy these hooks, they're only $3 a pack. You get 5 or 10 in a pack. So just pick up maybe $15, $20 worth of different size hooks. And when you're done with this, keep it rigged and put it right back into the bag like that. And that's why a lot of these are already rigged, because I pulled them right out of the bags. And you want to switch colors, you put it on the swivel, you're ready to go. You fish it for maybe 10 minutes, want to change colors, put that right back in the bag, go with this one. Now you have a different presentation, you have a different approach. It'll save you money on baits, so you're not continually destroying your baits just by switching them. They're ready to go, just like that. Everything's already pre-rigged. Some of them, I even still have scent on from the last time I used it, so you don't need to reapply that. So that's a simple way to save money and time. It's really quick. You can use the swivel. Also, if you get stuck on a branch, usually instead of snapping your line, this could open up like this, release your hook, and then you can bend this back down. Now, there are people that say that they've lost fish on a swivel. Perhaps that's possible. I have not. There are so many different manufacturers of different swivels. I guess that's possible. The quality control at whatever brand you have could miss a defect. So it is absolutely possible, but it has not happened to me. But this saves a lot of time if you're fishing from the shore. You want to add a little extra weight. And also it kind of resembles something like this is sort of chasing something. There's, have it backwards. Yeah, it gets just another element, another visual for the fish. And my favorite thing, and you may have heard of this, it's the double fluke rig. And if you have heard of it, you probably don't use it enough, because the double fluke rig is absolutely incredible. So what that is we'll take this, and this is a typical hook, and this is your line going back to your reel. So when you're putting this together, what you're going to want to do is have an additional one set up like this. So you have your hook, you have your line, and then what you have here, get that in focus. Come on. There we go. It's sort of like a swivel. So before you attach this hook, you are going to slide this on like so. And what that gives you is 2 hooks. So this one is on the swivel. I'm sorry, this one is on the swivel. And this one is, put this down so you can see it. And what that's gonna look like in the water is schooling bait fish. And instead of just having one fluke flutter through the water like that, you'll have 2. And it's amazing. And I can't tell you how many times I've used it. I actually caught the biggest fish of my life. I accidentally hooked into a flathead catfish. Turned out to be 35 pounds. Battled it on probably, I think this reel, or one of the ones I have similar, 30 size bass reel. Just absolutely crushed the double fluke rig. And you can try different colors. So if you have this one, let me just put this together real quick. So now you have that. And then this one. You can have the same color fluke. You can have different colored flukes to see which one they're hitting on. But I can guarantee you, when you see this and you kind of drop it in the water in front of you and you watch this go through, it's amazing. It's amazing. Obviously this end's tied to your reel and your rod, and it goes through the water, and now you have 2 baits. I wouldn't go more than 2. I think it's more efficient than the umbrella rig with the metal things hanging up. That doesn't look very natural to me. But the double fluke in the water, and this is about a perfect length. You want it maybe about a foot behind, so you still have, you're not having something dangling really far down for you to cast. You have 2 of these right in line. Cast it out and watch them both flutter through the water together. And what it's going to look like is schooling bait fish. So I think I covered everything. As far as the approach I take, most of the time I use everything weightless. If I do go with weights, I typically add a nail weight. Unless I'm fishing really, really deep, I would say maybe 15 feet or more, then I will go with a small bullet weight. But if you have any questions or you want me to cover anything else, I'll just leave it in the comments. I appreciate everybody watching. I am not a professional YouTube video maker. I'm just a guy just like you who likes to fish. I shoot the videos in one clip, so I apologize if sometimes I stutter or I have to think for a moment. I don't have any of this wrote down. I'm just sharing my knowledge just like I would if you're standing next to me in my room. So give me a follow on Twitter at Ohio_Bass. Give me a follow on Instagram at Ohio_Bass_outdoors. You can email my podcast. I have an Ohio Bass Fishing Podcast at theohioBassPodcast@gmail.com. Leave me a comment, subscribe. I'll subscribe back, and I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for watching.